Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Eric, KJ4YZI. You're watching HamRadioConcepts, and today marks part 1 of 3 using the Rigexpert AA-2000 Zoom analyzer on an in-depth, deep dive what you can do with an analyzer like this. And you may say, well, why are you doing that now? Didn't you do a bunch of videos previously that Gigaparts let you borrow all the Rigexpert antenna analyzers, and you did a video on each one? That is true. But Rigexpert had contacted me and said, hey Eric, you didn't show this one. And they're right, I didn't. But I also did miss a lot of information from what my commenters say. There's a lot you can do with this. And I made it really quick videos on each one. But imagine making a 1-hour video on every one. It would get kind of, well, long and a lot of work. So I figured I'd put all the time into this one, their flagship model, the AA-2000 Zoom, and show you everything that you can do with something like this. This will be part 1. I'm going to show you how to calculate the velocity factor, how to use the TDR functionality so you could test your cable or feedline or wherever antenna and see if there's an open or a short or an inductive load on your feedline without you even have to go outside. Okay? You could also determine the cable loss on this thing, multi-SWR, 5 SWRs at one time, all kinds of stuff on this thing. It's a great analyzer. You could do different batteries in this thing, all kinds of stuff. I'm going to show you that, okay? And what it comes with. And Rigexpert, thank you for sending me this. And I'm going to use it to play around with some stuff, my CV antennas in my truck. I'm going to be using those, using this to tune those, and a lot of other antennas I got to put up. But having an antenna analyzer is different than having a tuner. People may say, why do you need an antenna analyzer? I have an antenna tuner. So what? My SWR goes up in the middle of a windstorm. I'll just tune it again. This, you're going to see, this shows you what your antenna is doing. I don't care if you have a $6,000 Expert Electronics MB1, a $3,000 2kW amplifier. If your antenna is no good, your $10,000 is in the toilet. I'm going to tell you that right now, because your antenna may look good on a tuner, and you may say, I've tuned up my antenna, but I have a resonant antenna, and I know what my antenna is doing with something like this. Bottom line, put that $6,000 and that $3,000 into an antenna that's better than something that someone else has because it's resonant, and it's multiband, and there's no anomalies with it. You see what I'm getting at here? We're going to check out the AA-2000 Zoom. Thanks Rigexpert for sending this, and if you do want any of the Rigexpert analyzers that Gigaparts has to offer, go to the description in the page below, right here, the page in the description below. Go to Gigaparts page and type in the code at the top. You'll save 5% on anything on that page that Gigaparts sells that has the name Rigexpert on it. 5%. You want to buy 4 of these, you save 5%. Okay? Thanks Gigaparts for helping my fans out. Thanks Rigexpert for sending this to me. Thanks everybody for watching. Here it comes on HamRadioConcepts.
HamRadioConcepts is brought to you by HamRadioPrep.com. It's never been easier to learn about ham radio before you take the exam. And Ham Radio Prep makes it fun and guarantees your success. Visit HamRadioPrep.com. Use the code ERIC20 to instantly save 20% off every course you buy. Remember the name, HamRadioPrep.com.
So looking at this AA-2000 Zoom, and similar to the other units that they have, a rugged case that is splash proof and dust proof with a little bit of a drop proof. And they give you the case here. So, you know, I want this thing to fly around field day when we're making antennas. You know, I want the crew to use this, which, you know, can do any antenna at field day, and they could do multiple antennas at the same time, or multi-bands on one antenna. And I don't want to be like, oh man, I'll do it. I don't want to scratch it. No, put this thing in the bag and it's rugged. Okay, that's what's a good thing for this. When it comes to this Rigexpert series, look at this manual for a second, okay? Now the Zoom manual does have a little more illustrated color pictures in there and details, and I'm going to go through some of this stuff. We're gonna have several episodes because a lot of people said, Eric, you missed some valuable stuff on that video that other people have covered, like, you know, the Smith chart, or the memory operation, 250 unified slots for storing your records for SWR, reactance, resistance, impedance, and such. Even cable length measurement, open and short circuited cables, and velocity factor, cable fault location. I'm going to cover stuff like that because I did it with a previous analyzer, but I didn't do it with these. So that's deserving of a video. But the manual is definitely great for the Rigexpert. This unit, and most all of them, run on 3 AA batteries, okay? And they give you the 3 AA, these are rechargeable, nickel metal hydride, 2700 milliamps, and they give you the quick charger that plugs in to, European or the traditional US and charge these things in about an hour, all right? And the thing that they had mentioned on their stuff online that I missed was the fact that this thing doesn't eat batteries, to where they even said, go ahead and put a lithium ion in one spot, a nickel metal hydride in the other, and you could even use an alkaline in the third and it's gonna run. Or they said put 2 of these batteries in here and an empty 308 cartridge from a gun for the third one, and then you'll see that it still runs on only 2 batteries. So this thing is very, very efficient when it comes to power. So you may think, well, I don't want to tow this thing around, I can't charge this out in the field. So you get a couple of rechargeable batteries, or like I have a solar charger that'll recharge nickel metal hydride in the sun. You'll always have power on this thing out in the field. That's the cool thing. I have the MFJ analyzer over there by the wall. It uses 10 batteries, and that thing would start drifting in accuracy when you have 4 or 5 batteries that are starting to go. And if you didn't put all high quality alkalines in there, and it started drifting, the rechargeables would go first. So now you have 2 batteries that are quitting, and the thing will die because you had 2 rechargeable batteries that would break the circuit in series. And although that analyzer was really good, it doesn't do nothing compared to what this does. But there's a reason that this is a little more of a higher priced item that does a lot more for those who need it, okay? So we're gonna, oh, and another thing, with this device and the batteries, so again, from like 3 to 15 volts, this thing will not change accuracy. In fact, there was somebody that said you could put this in the refrigerator, get it cold, measure an antenna, then take it out, let it get hot in the sun, and measure it again, and the results are gonna be the same. So temperature compensation doesn't, you don't have to compensate for what the temperature is outside or inside. Let this thing warm up. Another thing is this. I'm comparing this to something I use at work, like an ANTSCOPE SiteMaster, which is thousands of dollars more than this. But you have to calibrate the thing every time, and they, coefficients for different, feed lines and or different temperature coefficients and calibrating, and a lot of stuff goes on when you have to use an expensive analyzer to get the same reading on a simple antenna outside. Something like this is pre-calibrated. When you turn this on out of the box, there's no calibrating. From 0 to 200 or 0 to 2000 megahertz, you can run this thing at UHF and go right to VHF, go right to HF, then go all the way up to 1.8 gigahertz if you want to, and it'll give you the same results without being calibrated. Okay, it's pre-calibrated at the factory. And you can calibrate this. I do not recommend going in that menu unless you have the appropriate loads to do that. So no need to calibrate it. But something like the ANTSCOPE, I'd have to choose my frequency first, figure out what the band spread is going to be that I'm sweeping. And then I'll do a open load on there and hit calibrate. Then I'll do a short, hit calibrate. Then I'll do a load, hit calibrate. And if I change it from UHF to VHF high band, forget it. I got to do the whole thing over again. I can go from one frequency to another, or do 5 bands at one time on the multi-SWR on this unit. That's very helpful with something like the Chameleon M-Pass, or if you have a dipole that you want to see where the resonant points are across the entire HF spectrum, do it right here. No need to calibrate or use any kind of special traps or anything to do that. The last thing I want to talk about as a highlight before we get into it, and this is going to be a second and a third video. Now, the second video is going to be about the USB connectivity. It comes with a USB cable. It's got a USB cable port on the bottom, right? This will work with the ANTSCOPE software, and it will also work Bluetooth to your smartphone app. And a lot of people mentioned, Eric, you didn't, of all those Rigexperts you showed us, you didn't show the Bluetooth functionality. What can you do with a tablet, an iPhone, or whatever on Bluetooth? We're going to show you that in the next video. The ANTSCOPE software and the app, and what I can do with this by saving maps and of my antenna, and how I can share that maybe on a website, or use that for when you're building your own antenna. All right, so let's turn it on here. I have it connected to an antenna. You get a nice color screen here that is easy to read in all sunlight conditions outdoors. all the Rigexpert analyzers do have either a monochrome or a color, but they have a great, large, easy to read, the way the screen is made and displayed for reading, because that's where we are. We're outdoors when we're doing antennas, right? That's mostly where we're at. So I have an antenna connected. I'm going to go through each one of the menus and kind of give you an idea of what you can see on this thing. All right, give you a more in-depth idea because I missed that in previous videos. Now, the buttons on the left, or the numbers on the left here, represent to the same corresponding quick key on the front keypad. So number 2 would be pushing number 2. If you hit number 5 right here, it's the resistance reactance chart. So you can either do it up or down, or use the quick keys on the front. So here we go. Let's start with the polar chart, Smith chart. Now, a lot of people may not use a polar chart. I tend to not gravitate to it. I kind of get the idea of it. I'm not an expert at it, but a lot of antenna engineers and designers may use that. And some people were always using that, and they want more than just a logarithmic, graph that goes from left to right. So if you were to hit start, it'll give you an idea of what it looks like when it draws on the polar chart. Now, keep in mind, if I hit frequency range, okay, you could do whatever you set on here is going to go across the entire analyzer, to the polar chart, to the reactance resistance, to the all parameters, SWR sweep. Everything is going to, go across at one time. Then you go through the menus and you see what you want to see about your antenna. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a custom, you can hold function and go like this and go, 15 meter band, 17, 20 meter band. And it automatically puts you in the center of that band and does 210 kilohertz each way on 20 meters. It keeps you in the middle of that entire 20 meter band and scans each way. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go 3 megahertz to 30. Okay. Right. Now, if I hit start, that's 3 to 30 megahertz. All right. It gives me an idea of the polar chart if I wanted to use up or down or left or right. You see the marker moving, the little orange marker, and I can see at that frequency where it is, pertaining to the Smith chart. Okay, but let me go back, because you may say I've never seen that before. Here's an SWR chart. Same thing. Now watch this. I'm going to zoom out a little bit, and that's again 3 to 30. I'm going to hit start. Right. Now I can hit left and right and look at the frequency up top, and it'll show you the minimum SWR is 1.6 to 1 at 16.4 megahertz, but it'll show me here with the SWR on the left side from 1 to 10, and I can go left and right. Let's say we'll go to 30 meters, roughly 30 meters, and I'll zoom in. Right. Now look, I can move by 20 kilohertz, zoom in even more. And I can see exactly, this center marker here, where I'm at, what the SWR is. If I hold it, see, I can sweep all the way up to, let's go to 20 meters here. Oh, that highlights the band in purple. So maybe you're a shortwave listener. Maybe you need to see outside of the band. You want to check over here, not in the purple, So right there. So to give me an idea of what the SWR is, a 20 meter band, right? Just like this. That's the advantage of having the zoom function. When you look at an entire sweep like that, okay, you can see right to each band. But wait, there's more. Reactance, resistance chart. I'll zoom into this one, right? And let's start. This is 3 to 30 megahertz. Now the yellow is the resistance and the blue is reactance. And you can see where they intersect and where, what the value is and what the resonance is with resistance and reactance, 50 ohm load and all that. So that's, another feature of doing it this way. And you can zoom in and out on that too, see? Scroll on the graph right there. All right, shows you your resistance and your reactance and your resonance there. Now if we go, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, we'll go back. All right, and we'll go to SWR meter. A lot of people are familiar with this. Okay, now let me change the frequency again. We'll just do 12 meters. Put me right in the middle of the 12 meter band. Hit start. That's just a real-time snapshot right there of the 12 meters of where I am. And again, I could use left or right, move the frequency, and see how my SWR is affected. It seems that it's pretty flat, or not flat, but consistent across the entire band. Okay, and your return loss right here on the bottom, 8.95 dB at 2.1 SWR at 24.950 megahertz. Right, that's real time. As you change, if you go out there and touch that, it's going to move on the meter here and show you a real time how you're making your changes. All right. So all parameters is useful for those who really got to know what's going on. Now here is 24.950 megahertz, middle of the 12 meter band. And if I hit OK to start, shows me at one snapshot my SWR, my impedance, my return loss, my phase. And then on the bottom, if you hit function and one, you can switch it from series to parallel. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not sure. I can see that we have the inductance and capacitance and nanohenries and picofarads. I'm not sure exactly what would series and parallel be. Your comments are appreciated below. But you can see in real time, that shows you a lot of information on your antenna on what's happening. And that may be useful for matching stubs or matching networks, maybe using it for traps. That may be very useful if you're building your own antenna. Gives you a lot of information there that's useful. Okay, next cool function is the TDR chart, time domain reflectometer. What is that? Well, a time domain reflectometer I used when I worked at AT&T. I use it now mapping out transmission lines up a tower for various transmit and receive antennas. You know, if you have different junctions or couplings or bad antennas, you don't want to climb up the tower every time to figure out if it is your coax or the connector or in the antenna, right? And just like at AT&T, we used to use it to map 3,000 feet of underground cable. What do you do? I knew somebody that actually did that. They dug every 5 feet trying to find the cable anomaly in the backyard of somebody's house. It looked like whack-a-mole by the time he was done because he didn't know how to use a TDR. But that'll give you the, basically measure how long the loop is and where you have the anomaly. Now it will show you if there's an open or a short or an inductive load. So what I'm going to show you is, I'm going to go to TDR chart here. And I'm going to, there's three ways of looking at it, okay? First what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit OK. Now the antenna feed line I have out there is wide open. There's nothing on it. So it's out my back window to my backyard, and it's going to basically tell me how far that cable is. And that goes on the velocity factor. You know, LMR for RG58 is usually 0.66. By default, it's on 0.66 of a velocity factor. But then you have like RG213, which is somewhere around 60 to 70. Then you have LMR 400, which is over 80, somewhere around 82, 84. And depending on how the cable's made, the velocity factor, which is here on number 3, would give you the most accurate reading if you had the most accurate velocity factor. That's based on a manufacturer's spec. You can look that up. And different measurement lengths. So the rule of thumb is you want to make sure that you're measuring the least distance possible for the best view on the graph, but you want to make sure that that length is longer than your antenna feed line and antenna, because if you're measuring 50 feet but your antenna is 100 feet away, you're not even going to get to the problem at the end of the antenna yet, okay? Or the end of the coax or feed line. So if you look at what I just swept here, we're going to zoom in. Okay, what you're looking at when I move the little graph here is a open circuit right there at 11.67 meters. So that is about as long as my, well, let's do this. We're going to change the velocity factor here. I'm going to go to 0.8, 85. Let's do that. I'm going to sweep again with a better velocity factor. And we're going to see how far my feed line is with it open on the end. Okay, now that would indicate that to that open, there is nothing wrong with the cable, because if I had 50 feet of cable and there was an open at 26 feet, that would mean halfway I have a break in the cable. Okay, so here we go again. So that's a little bit more accurate. Okay, so we'll zoom in right here. The open is at 14.69 meters. Okay, now I am going to go outside and connect my antenna, and I'm going to run this again, and we're going to see what it looks like when there's an inductive load on there. I could use an alligator clip and short the end, and that would go dip down. That would show, you know, here would dip down and it would show you a short. But then you can have an inductive load, which you'll see how it looks on the graph here in a second. Okay, so I have it connected. I'm going to run it again. Now we're going to see what the difference is when I have my antenna connected. The advantages of a TDR, as I said, are also dependent on what kind of antenna you have. You know, if you have something that does, you know, it will show a different, it's not always an inductive load on the end, all right? I can get into that over and over, but now look at the difference here. See, now it goes up and it comes down. So now it would say that the end of my antenna would be right there at the bottom of that dip. Everything after that is useless because we've already, you know, let's go heartbeat on the, you know, the flatline thing at the hospital. Everything after that is useless because it's already seen the end of the antenna. All right. Now, if I put a short on it, like a direct short, it would just go straight down. It'd be opposite of open. All right. And in the manual here in the annex section in the back, it will give you an idea of what, you know, different ones look like. You know, you have, you know, inductive termination, capacitive discontinuity, all kinds of stuff in here. It'll show you on the annex section of what it would look like. So the TDR is great. A great thing to have, something that's very valuable in this analyzer that I could use time and time again. Multi-SWR, here's a good one of mine. I like this, a favorite of mine rather. If I hit multi-SWR, there's 5 right now pre-programmed frequencies that are the center of 20, 17, 15, 12, and 10 meters. That's the center of each one. Now, if I hit start, in real time, there is the 5 bands and the SWRs accordingly. 1.75 for 20 meters, you know, 1.68 for 17, 1.5 for 15 meters, 2 for 24, and 2.8 for 10 meters. And you can get the idea of when you change different radiating stubs or traps or tuning networks on one part of the antenna, how it will affect the other, which it should or shouldn't. And you can get an idea of what the changes made instead of having, see, this is what I'm saying. Something like the VNA, you can't get this because every time you go to one of these different bands, you got to recalibrate. And that's a pain in the butt, it really is. So even like an MFJ would be a single band only. So having the ability to do 5, let's say you built a, for instance, I used something like this when I was on my Chameleon fan dipole, which does 20 and 40 meters. And I had a field day at the RV. And I could adjust the 20, but keep an eye on 40 at the same time, you know, for field day with 2 bands going at one time. So the multi-SWR, really, really neat. And if you go to frequency range here, you can set by going, let's see, up and down frequency range, you can set the band that you want, the frequency, all right? Tools. So the multi-tools, of course, for multi-SWR. Watch this. This is pretty cool. It just looked at every one of the bands and it gave me, by stars, what's got better resonance. Okay? Rating it in stars. 2 stars. So you can see here, these are not good. 1 star. We got 3 stars here on 15 meters. You know? 1 star on 80 meters. So it gives you an idea of the SWR at what frequency, on what band, and it rates them for you with a star. So far, this antenna is 3 stars on 15 meters, guys. So, stub tuner. Let's say you're making, coaxial stubs for various different antennas or matching stubs for Yagis, stuff like that. I'm not going to do that today, but connect the cable with open or short far end, then press check mark to start. And it will measure, for quarter wave, half wave. It'll give you an idea of when you're making different matching stubs and stubs for different frequencies. All right, guys, this one is really cool. This is the length and velocity factor. Okay, now watch this. Let's say you want to know the length of cable connected to this. Maybe you got a roll of it. Maybe you don't know how long your cable is. Maybe you're working on resonance for your antenna and your cable happens to be the multiple of a wavelength or whatever. If you don't know the length of the cable, all you need is a velocity factor and it'll tell you. If you don't know the velocity factor, all you need is the length of the cable and it will tell you. That's pretty neat. Now, I know by testing this that the velocity, I'm using Messiaen Poloni Hyperflex pure copper coax. Really, really good stuff. Really expensive stuff. And I think the velocity factor is about 0.84 is what it came up to. So watch this though. 84, right? With just the velocity factor, I took it off the antenna again. It's open. Watch this. And I know how long that cable is out there. It's 50 feet. 50-foot piece with pre-terminated ends at gigaparts at cent. Watch this. So I go to calculator. I type in 3.3 times, for a meter is 3.3 feet, times 15.39. Look at this. 50 foot. It measured it to the T. 50 foot of cable. That is amazing that there's no calibration or anything. I could take that $10,000 ANTSCOPE SiteMaster and it would take me an hour to try to figure out how long that cable is, where it took me 5 seconds on this thing. All right, so here's another one. Cable loss. If you want to calculate the loss of your coax feed line. Let's say you have a bunch of unbranded stuff, or is it lossy? Will it work for you at higher frequencies, like at VHF, UHF 1.2 gig? What is the actual loss at those frequencies? Well, by using this, okay, the one thing I can't find to demonstrate this, this is my, this is an ANTSCOPE load here. This is a short on this side, an open on this side, and a load on this side, 50 ohms. And I need this. I can't find the adapters to go from N to S239. I don't have an end-to-end cable, so can't use this. But this is something that is very high quality that you would use to do something like this, because first you need to connect an open, and then you would need to connect a short. And then it'll give you the cable loss on there. You get the idea. Unfortunately, I don't have a way to connect this right at this moment, but you get the idea. We go back here and we'll go to cable impedance. Another one. Connect an open circuit, connect a short circuit, and you'll see if it's 50 ohms, 75 ohm, or what the impedance is, even if it's compromised and it's not what's showing you what it should be. If you're struggling to get an antenna to tune, this is why you need something like this, because this will measure the coax too. You might have a coax that's lossy. You might have a coax that's actually resonant on the same frequency and it's radiating. I'm not sure, but there's a lot of factors that this will tell you and why you need something like that. LC meter. So I guess this would be inductance and capacitance, so you can actually read the values of inductors and capacitors. That would be good for matching networks. If you want to measure how much inductance or capacitance you're using to make that match in a tuner, you could use something like this. We won't go into that today, but that is very possible. 50 ohm load test, that is to test like a dummy load or a 50 ohm load and seeing if you have a perfect match on a 50 ohm load, okay? Normally you'd put that like, you could do that on the end of the feed line at the antenna and test it. You should have a 50 ohm load if you connect it right to this analyzer, you have 50 ohm, and then at 200 feet away you should have 50 ohm. That indicates you have, like right now I have it plugged in outside, inside nothing, so say it's 0%, so it's not connected to anything. Self-tests, well, those are for if you want to check current errors or see if there's something, maybe it says it's out of calibration, testing against itself. You shouldn't really have to do that. I mean, unless you notice an issue, this isn't designed to run everyday self-test because these things are pretty solid. They hold it pretty good. I'm going to exit that. Okay, so one more thing. We're going to go down here. Oh, that's it there. I'm going to go up to setup here, and I want to show you one more thing here. Now, the setup, language. Many languages, or several at least in here. English, that looks like maybe Russian, German, French, Italiano, Espanol, Portuguese, Chinese or Japanese or Mongolian, I'm not sure, but you can see all the different languages you have here, okay? And at the same time, the palette for the display in full sunlight, you can have orange, which I like the most. If you go to sand, that's kind of, a lot of these are for people's ability to read it. Not what looks cool, but maybe your eyesight or you have a visual impairment that you can only see something like blue, you know, or maybe you could only see violet, or maybe you could only see just a contrast of black and white, or maybe you can only see inverted. Okay, those are for ease of use and operation. So I like it on orange. I think it looks pretty good there. All right, battery. So you can have optimal, battery saver, or intensive. Now I like the battery meter up here. I like how it's clearly visible. Looks like doing all this, I've only taken off just a little bit of, and I didn't even charge them fully, so they might not, they might need to be charged before using it. I charge everything before I use it. And the Bluetooth is on. So the Bluetooth on, doing what we've been doing for the last hour, that's what's came off the battery. It's pretty nice. And battery type, I have nickel metal hydride, but you can use alkaline or lithium ion. And the reason they give you the battery type, why does something come with a battery type, because here's the deal. 2 nickel metal hydride rechargeables at full capacity are still less than 2 alkaline at full capacity. So if it's always looking for alkalines and you put in nickel metal hydride, it would automatically show that your batteries are half dead. So it calibrates the battery meter to what it's looking for. So 2.5 volts maybe, or 2.67 volts may be full on nickel metal hydrides, whereas 3.3 volts may be full on alkaline. And then you can even use lithium ion AA cells that are 3.7 volts a piece. So you could actually do, like, it'll take 3 to 15 volts from 3 different types of batteries. So if you want to spend the money and get some lithium ions in there, that'd be great. The sound for the beep, Bluetooth on or off, system impedance. If you're working on something that's not 50 ohm, 25 ohm, 50, 75, 100, 150, 200, 300, and that would probably be for twin lead and TVs, kind of feedline, stuff like that. That's 75 ohm, but if you're using ladder line or something and you have a different impedance, or just in general for whatever else is 600 ohm, I'm not sure, but you can do that. For the ham world, we usually stick with 50 on coax. Units, I got to change that right now to imperial. There we go. Now we'll see feet. And the bands, Europe and Africa. Not sure. Well, we'll leave it there. I guess, I'm not sure what that is. Velocity factor 85. So if you're using the same velocity factor every time, you just set it, forget it. If you're changing velocity factors, you just do a sweep and find out what it is. Clear save charts, and that's it. Okay. So if I go to a SWR chart, I have the ability to save that, but watch this too. If you hit number 1, it always gives you a help on every item you're on. So for instance, I'm in SWR Chart Help. So if you want to, show data at cursor, or let's see, change frequencies, set full range, jump to minimum SWR, change scale, edit memory name, save number 6, okay, load data number 9. So that's really cool that every option in here, like if I go to multi-SWR, like this, and I hit F1, or just 1. Start stop meter, choose item. Oh, that's, hold on, wrong one. There we go. Okay. So there's your help there. Set frequency, switch mode. What about if I go to polar and I hit F1? Run once or stop, cycle, show data at cursor, switch view, change frequency, save, set frequency and range. The help is on every section by just pushing number 1 wherever you're in, and it'll give you the help on that section. All right. With all that said, what do you think about what you see? So far, yes, I couldn't do this for every single model. I did the AA-2000, the 35, the 600, the 650, the 800, 1000. I couldn't do this for all of those, but this is why I'm making this video part 1 now. This encompasses a lot of the analyzers that you see with the features shown in this video. For instance, a lot of these have the multi-SWR, but some of them don't, okay? So if this is based on their flagship top of the line AA-2000 Zoom, but the structure of Rigexpert is about the same across the board. So maybe a different display or whatever, but you get the idea. What do you think about what you saw in part 1? And what do you think about part 2, where I'm going to show you the antenna ANTSCOPE software on the computer via USB and the Bluetooth on the app. I think that's going to be a great feature to add to this that a lot of people ask me about on this antenna analyzer, or on many of them that have Bluetooth. Not all of them have Bluetooth, but most of them do. So leave a comment below on what you think about that stuff. And I'll try to get to the questions to answer for you. But check out the link in the description, gigaparts.com. Save 5% on any one of these analyzers. And you're going to see me using this in the future with different antennas and different ideas I have going, including my moon balance project in the backyard that's going to happen with a Yagi from High Gain, as well as my CB antennas and so much more. 7-3 everybody. Thanks for watching. More videos are on the way, and wait for that new podcast. It's coming next week. 7-3. This is KJ4YZI.